What is going on, everyone? Today we have got Diego Borgo, someone I've been wanting to get on the show for a really long time, here to stop by and talk
Oh,
about
I
how
lost your audio.
how Web3 is really going to be impacting the future of work, right? And how can companies look at some of the learnings from Web3 and then bring those into, kind of be able to help adapt for the future of work and attract new workforces. So we're super happy to have him on. Diego, how's it going, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for being on the show, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm stoked.
Yeah, well, so if anyone hasn't seen you before on LinkedIn or across the web, you are like one of, I would say, the main voices in the Web3 space. So super happy to kind of pick your brain, but would love to just kind of maybe just quickly start with a intro in case people haven't seen you or listened to your content.
Yeah, sure. I've been in marketing, digital strategy, and branding, consulting brands for the last decade. That's sort of like my Web2 background. I've been in blockchain since 2017. I've sort of like seen the possibilities, the use case, and was really excited about that. And then being a marketeer and a brand guy was really hard for me to fit within that sort of like tech community and find my space. So I could never like dive deep and go all in as I always wanted to. And all of that changed when I first heard of NFTs. Right, NFTs for me was that moment where my brain just exploded because now the technology that I always wanted to play with got together with storytelling, with art, with creativity. And that happened when I was at Adidas in the headquarters in Germany. I spent 4 years over there consulting the brand as an external partner, and friends of mine were pushing the brand towards the direction of Web3, NFTs, metaverse, and so on. And they sort of like show me what they were up to, and I've seen the light. I was like, holy shit, it's not just the degen side of things that I've been
Yeah, yeah,
doing, by myself, but
yeah.
now there is space for enterprise as well. So I joined then. We delivered into the metaverse. It was the success it was. We went on and did the partnership with Prada and Adidas as well. And then from there, I left the brand and did what I always done, which is consulting brands.
Hmm.
So the last 1 year and 2 or 3 months now, I've been consulting Fortune 500 brands on how to enter the space. I worked with Salesforce, with Unilever, with L'Oreal, with Mastercard, with Volkswagen Group, that being Porsche, Skoda, Cupra, and with Shell as well. So really working with those brands and sort of like trying to show them the possibilities within our space.
That's dude. Been with some of the some of the biggest ones out there. That's amazing, man. Um, yeah. So what I would love to chat with you about today is because I saw it. I commented on one of your LinkedIn posts because I thought it was super interesting around DAOs, right? And I've always found DAOs like incredibly fascinating. Like a lot of
Mm.
my day at Gigster is spent trying to like understand like how people work and like how the future of work is going to be impacted. And I, being a huge blockchain fan, think that the mechanics behind DAOs are really fascinating, right? Um, when you think about obviously like Web3 and NFTs kind of have like their B2C use case, right? But have you seen or like are you starting to see traction or really kind of like what your vision is of how companies could be looking at Web3 to say we can actually use this to like help our employees, right? Or incentivize new types of workers or maybe adapt how we structure what we traditionally think of as employment to something differently. I mean, I'm curious to see how you could see these worlds kind of like colliding.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm fascinated about DAOs as well, right? So what I always try to tell to people is why DAOs are so exciting is because it's touching at one thing that is fundamental for human evolution, which is how we organize ourselves, right? And every time you have something that touches that area of how we organize ourselves, there is a huge impact on society and humanity, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what is exciting. That's what is interesting. I think that what we have seen so far, especially on the mainstream side of things, when it comes to DAOs, is still very far from its full potential, right? So it's really hard to still grasp how all of that is going to evolve and how all of that is going to sort of like, uh, you know, create that impact. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that one of the core elements of what Web3 has enabled, which is creating more trust between parties that don't know each other through technology, through smart contracts, through blockchain technology, is a fundamental, kind of like cornerstone of that. So when
Mm-hmm.
you take that concept and you start looking from that angle into how brands, companies, organizations, NGOs, and all of that can start trying to understand how they can utilize or leverage that new way of doing things to potentially create new mechanisms of engagement, either with customers or with teams, or with from a B2B perspective, it becomes really interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen anything really compelling yet within that space that it's companies are taking full advantage of it. Obviously, I'm following very close when brands are saying like, "Oh, we're gonna join a DAO," like Gucci did with Super Rare, right?
Right.
That's when it becomes interesting, because they're basically buying a seat at the edge of culture, the edge of technology, to be at the table and see what's happening. And that's really powerful, because it displays that what we are up to on that side of this whole spectrum
Mm-hmm.
is becoming really interesting, and other people want to be part of that too, even the big brands, right? Because all what it comes down, for example, in this specific situation, is uh, to remain relevant for the culture, to remain relevant on the streets. Brands like Gucci, Adidas, Nike need to always be at the edge of culture, right? And we are seeing that sort of like exploration element of it through, for example, this thing that Gucci did with Super Rare, which I found really interesting when I first heard of that. So I think that there's different elements to look at that, right? I know is what you're looking probably is more from an organization perspective. I think the core element that I preach a lot when it comes to the future of work is also the future of the real world model, right? We look at the startup model where people are incentivized to come in with very specific and very valuable knowledge to help a company to grow, because they are being incentivized in different manners, right? So it's not the classic, I'm going to pay you X amount of money per year, and you come in and this is the package we're giving you. Is much more connected to like having skin in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are questioning right now how they should go about, especially the big brands, how they should go about building the Web3 studio, how they should go about hiring Web3 talent, which is super difficult, because again, we are super early on the knowledge curve, we are super early on the use case, we're super early on what's happening. So the way I'm looking at and trying to sort of like replicate the startup model for brands and the future of collaboration and work is looking into that sort of like reward model, right? So
Right.
how can we reward people in different manners? How can we incentivize that in different manners? How can you bring talents from all globe the world, all over the world into one place? How can you find different metrics of decision making? How do you can find different manners of voting and sort of like coming together as a group that can be anon, can be dogs, can be one company, can be different parties and different organizations. But because the way the technology enables us to do right now, we can bring all of that together into one pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like the way I'm looking to that.
Got it. No, that so you mentioned like a few things there that I see that I think are really interesting. Is that one, looking at, and like we'll use I would like to use the most of this time just to kind of focus on the DAO part, because again I think it's going to be such a huge impact that Web3 will have, like fundamentally, right, to how
Mm.
the world works. Because you said it before, like one of the biggest things that makes civilization and humanity is our ability to organize at mass scale, right? Into foundationally from communities into cities, and then up and now to this abstract notion of what a company is, and this kind of disruption at the bottom level of what does a company really mean, I think was kind of turned upside down on its head when DAOs came around. Like someone looked at it, like I think Constitution DAO is a great example. Like they were
Mm.
able to
Mm.
mobilize thousands of people with raise millions of dollars of capital anonymously, kind of within a few days to achieve a common goal. And when that common goal was met, or when that goalpost was reached, they can then determine where they go from there. And that like concept to me is like such a wild thing. But you mentioned a few things. One was that, brands looking to join DAOs as a way to kind of, stay at the edge of culture, right? To show this, like, you're keeping a foot in and a pulse on what the market is really doing. Do you think that that applies to every brand? If they're maybe trying to use it as a way to attract talent, or maybe if they're a way to push the brand forward, do you think every brand should be looking at DAOs, or is it maybe just ones that are culturally driven, like fashion, right, or other areas?
I think that depends on the angle you're looking at it, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of brands might be looking at that from a PR standpoint, right? To get the headlines, just to say, oh, they joined a DAO, which is yeah, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I understand that a lot of times is a compelling motive for brands to do so.
for
So I
sure.
think that the why you want to do it is extremely important, and I think that for fashion is a bit easier because there are a bunch of different DAOs out there that is not just about being at the edge of culture when it comes to like doing cool shit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also to like be closer to the people and to the communities and to the
Mm-hmm.
builders that are doing cool shit,
Yeah.
right? So when I look at, for example, Red DAO is a great example that if you were branding fashion, there's a lot happening in there that probably you want to be close with to understand what the next steps are because you know there is a lot happening in the space of digital fashion, Web3 native fashion, and so on that you might learn from. So I think that as you would have almost like innovation boards or innovation agencies or organizations that bring the industry together in one place to look and learn and shape the future of the industry. I think DAOs will do exactly that, but in a manner that's again decentralized, which is much more exciting because you sort of like you can bring talents from all over the place. There is
Mm-hmm.
not that hierarchical or institutional way that usually you would have when there is a company pulling the industry together to talk about something, right? There's always agendas behind that, and I
Sure.
think that the beauty of what DAOs bring to the table within that ecosystem is that literally people from all over the world can get together and decide tackling a certain topic and go with it, right? So going back to your point, I think that for brands would be really interesting, in, regardless whether you're fashion or not. I think that if you were looking to new ways of exploring a certain industry area, sector, vertical, if you are looking to potential new ways of innovation, if you're looking to almost like an intel play where you just want to be listening to what is happening that you might not be aware of, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of interesting things happen, right? I have a friend that he's part of a DAO that they're basically building the future of transportation through drones, taxi drones, right? So they get together and they're looking into how the future
Okay.
of mobility through drones looks like, and people basically sitting inside of the drone. The drone is autonomous, drive from A to B, and brings you somewhere. Think of like Uber of the skies, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if I am Uber or if I'm a transportation company and I hear that, I'm like, I think it would be worth for us to have a sit there just to sort of like see what's happening or to
Right.
see how we can contribute or to see how can we partner or to see
Mm-hmm.
how can we seed or how see how we can invest. So I think there is a lot of like ways that becoming part of a such ecosystem can allow you to learn or to sort of like be closer to the future of innovation, which is much more frictionless than on the old world, as I said, where you might need to be joining those huge conferences,
Yeah.
events. You might need to be, paying thousands and thousands of dollars to be part of a board of whatever. And that doesn't necessarily means that this is the actual edge,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that those have sort of like, especially what we have seen in the example you used, have shown us that there is a lot of potential within that space to be literally at the edge of what's happening.
Right. Now, is there like any, and like, so that's, I feel like that's the topic, right, that we're circling there is around this concept of like innovation, right? The edge, like the only way to really, or like, I don't want to say the only way, but like the new way, right? To be able
It's a
to
different
tap,
way. It's a different approach.
it's,
It doesn't kill the old, and it's not necessarily the best way, but it's a pretty compelling new way of looking into that shouldn't be ignored.
right. Yeah, of course. Because the other area too that I'm curious your thoughts, right, is that I know that it's like DAOs, they don't have to be like, so you can, if you're a business, right, and you're listening to this, I hear this a lot, is around like, well, we don't want to lose competitive advantage, or we don't want our secrets to get leaked. But like, I think that with a DAO, like you can take a DAO principles and move them inside your business, right? To help, like if you're a business of 50,000 people, like there are mechanics that you can take from it to try to like break down organizational silos, which is something that we hear about a lot, right? You know, within big business, no finger and hand knows what the other hand's doing. So how do I increase collaboration? How do I increase culture during the distributed work future that we live in now? A lot of brands ask about that. Like, do you think that there's, or how would you, if someone were to ask, Diego, you know, we're thinking about adopting a DAO or using a DAO internally, what are some pitfalls? Like what should we be aware of, or like what should we maybe think about before doing this? Strong hypothetical, and I'll try to play the unsavvy executive on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first element of that is going to be how do you compete with the already existing machinery and hierarchy by creating something absolutely entirely different, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you compete when it comes to how does this machine operate without that machine? Because that's the big problem with big corps, right?
Sure.
The machine is what slows down everything, and the machine is pretty much there's a pretty clear pattern, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why now a lot of those companies are trying to fund Web3 studios, almost like a spin-off organization, instead of trying to include that within the already existing machinery, right? So I think that's the first structural point that I would look like, that I would look at. And then once you figure that out, is if the decision is to create a fast boat that, moves right beside that big tanker, but it has enough, sort of like flexibility to go and come back and to go faster. And, it's pretty lightweight, can take a hit. And if something goes wrong, the boat's burned, but, it's kind of like isolated. Yeah. I think that's kind of like a good way to start looking into that, right? So testing at small scale, testing at in a manner that you can incentivize a specific group and create almost like a separate spectrum for that to exist within. And then from there, I think that the test that's going to be the most interesting for me, at least, is how do you incentivize talents, right? How do you create sense of belonging that goes beyond just the culture element, right? Because I understand the importance of culture, but a lot of times, like, people want to be part of something that is bigger than themselves, but they also want to be rewarded in a manner that is proportional to their input, right? Is my output proportional to my input? And I feel that we still struggle a lot, especially on the innovation side of things, to reward and contribute to that, because majority of the talents that are sitting within those large organizations on the innovation side of things, they are bringing very big experience and intelligence from their own experience. A lot of times, companies that they've founded, companies that they've sold, or things that they've built, and keeping entrepreneurs within a normal, quote unquote, or a traditional set of rewards or set of hierarchy, it's barely impossible, right? I've been declining job offerings since 10 years plus because I don't feel I fit within organizations.
Right.
But I would be really excited to be part of something that rewards people for their input and operates more on the likes of a DAO as well.
That's like an even like bigger conversation. But I think that like historical mechanic of compensation within businesses, right? It's like, you do something and I'll give you some money, but that money is fixed, and that variable is kind of subjective on what you're inputting and outputting. When in reality, it should be a much closer pairing, or maybe even to the point where your peers should be able to have some level of input to validate, either overachievement or underachievement. So like, and I've actually never really thought about it, but like that whole, like if I had to like phrase it into like a like super sick white paper topic, right? It'd be like exploring what variable like compensation rates using DAO peer-to-peer voting systems or something would be cool, because I agree, like I think that like future workforces have like a very vastly different expectations of what compensation and what belonging mean to in the notion of work. And I do think that there's a huge area for companies to explore with DAOs to help try to like tie into that, because you said it as well, like that, like beyond culture, it's that sense of belonging, which is really hard to build. I mean, for any company, right? Especially now distributed companies. So this could be a great way for them to do it. But I know that we're bumping up on time, man, and I wanted to thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. Would love to pick your brain at some point in the future. But before we get off, if people want to follow you, if they want to find you, if you want to have anything cool you want to talk about, let the listeners know.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm stoked. I'm stoked for the opportunity. I set myself on this mission of translating the madness of Twitter into LinkedIn to help other people that want to learn more and hear more about our space, but just don't feel that Twitter is the right place for them, because we know it's a fucking crazy place.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm on LinkedIn. My handle is Diego Borgo, Borgo. You can find me over there. That's where I create my content. That's where I'm connected to most of the people. That's where we found each other, and reconnected. And that's kind of like the space I've been the most vocal with. The latest things that are inside my head.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you so much again. I can't look forward to seeing maybe the next time we chat. And we'll be putting his LinkedIn and everything contacts down in the comments section below. So Diego, man, enjoy the rest of your day. Very, very much appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye. All right. And with that, Diego, awesome conversation. Like, again, if you want to learn more about DAOs, or if you're a business leader and you want to figure out how you can implement this within your enterprise, you can check us out below. You can check out Diego below. But with that, we will catch you next time.